Oh, welcome home.
Huh? When I returned home from work, the person who was there was my ex-husband, who disappeared 3 years ago.
You're always late. Making your husband wait? Man, I'm starving. Is dinner ready yet?
As if it was perfectly normal, my ex-husband barged into my house and brazenly made these comments. In my mind, memories from 3 years ago were resurfacing. The image of my ex-husband who dumped all the household chores on me, shouted at me unfairly, stood me up on our wedding anniversary trip and disappeared. And now, he was right before my eyes. The man I despised from the bottom of my heart was now right in front of me. The voice that came out of my mouth was surprisingly cold. Who are you? Huh? He was just staring at me, looking surprised. My name is Hazel. I'm turning 30 this year. These days, I lead a peaceful life as a company employee, but I have a past. That is about my husband Steve, whom I married when I was 25. I met Steve through a friend's introduction. He, a salesperson, had a manly character, the exact opposite of my quiet and reserved self. I felt something that I didn't have in myself and was drawn to him, so we started dating. In the second year of dating, I accepted a marriage proposal from Steve. After we registered our marriage, we started our married life in an apartment that my parents gave us as a wedding gift. Everything was fine until then. After getting married, Steve's attitude changed drastically. During our dating, he used to speak kindly to me and gave me presents. But after marriage, he stopped doing all that. On top of that, even though we both worked, he made me do all the housework. He left his dirty laundry all over the place, left trash scattered around, and wouldn't even thank me for preparing meals. He even refused to do minor chores like taking out the trash. After living with him for about a month, I reached my limit and decided to talk to Steve one day. Hey Steve, we're both working. Can't you help a little with the housework? Then Steve let out a sigh, as if he was tired.
You know we're married, right, Hazel?
Yeah, but...
It's common sense that the wife does the housework after marriage.
I couldn't hide my surprise at Steve's outrageous words. That's not true. These days it's common for both parties to share the workload.
What? You're trying to make your husband work at home too? You're such a nagging wife.
A nagging wife?
If you don't want to be called that, you better do your job properly.
With that, Steve started watching TV. I couldn't say anything and could only continue doing the housework. A year passed since our marriage, and I got completely used to doing all the housework by myself. Steve started saying,
I'm busy with work,
and coming home late, and even working on weekends. There were days when I realized we hadn't had a decent conversation for 2 weeks. One day, when he happened to come home early, I hesitantly started a conversation with him. Hey Steve, are you still busy with work?
Yeah, kind of.
You've been coming home after midnight recently, and you don't seem to have any days off. Maybe it's better if you change your job.
Stay out of my business!
Steve suddenly yelled, surprising me and making me step back in shock. I'm sorry. I just worry about your health.
You don't need to say unnecessary things. Leave me.
From that point on, Steve started a pattern of returning home late, sleeping, then leaving early in the morning. We hadn't done anything together for months, like going out on weekends. At this rate, our relationship will fall apart. I have to do something. I was filled with feelings similar to anxiety. As I was racking my brains, I came up with a plan. I asked him as he returned home, Hey, Steve, isn't our anniversary during the upcoming holidays?
Yeah, I guess.
He replied gruffly as he removed his tie. Not discouraged, I proposed. Keep that day free. Let's go on a trip together.
A trip?
Yes. Wouldn't it be nice? I'll cover the costs. Please?
I see.
Steve thought about it for a while, then finally agreed.
All right, I'll keep the day free.
That's great. I'll plan everything. And so Steve and I decided to go on a trip for our anniversary. I hoped this trip could rekindle our bond that had been gradually fading. With this in mind, I researched thoroughly and made our travel arrangements. A few weeks later, the day of the trip arrived. Steve hadn't returned home since he went to work the day before. Our departure was scheduled for 10 a.m., and time was quickly running out. I called him repeatedly in a panic, but I couldn't reach him. Finally, in the afternoon, Steve called. "Hello? We're supposed to go on a trip today, right? Where are you?" I asked.
Sorry. Work is running late.
"We have a check-in time. We should leave soon."
Can you go ahead and check in for us? I'll catch up.
"Really? You're actually coming, right?"
I told you I would. Bye.
The call ended abruptly, and I was left dumbfounded. The check-in time was approaching, and I needed to leave immediately. I really wanted to check in with Steve and explore the area together after arriving. But despite my thoughts, I headed to our destination alone. When I checked into the hotel, they seemed surprised to see me alone. Naturally, as I'd made a reservation for 2, I explained that my husband would be arriving later and was then shown to our room. Outside the window, it had started to rain, as if reflecting my feelings. For a while, I stayed in, waiting for Steve's arrival. But even after 1 hour, 2 hours, he didn't show up. Worse yet, he didn't even call. At this rate, the dinner reservation we had made would go by. After several unsuccessful attempts to call Steve, I was only connected to voicemail. In the end, I swallowed my embarrassment and had them make me a dinner for 1, which I ate alone. The meal was lavishly prepared with spirit, but no matter what I tasted, I couldn't find its flavor. My vision blurred repeatedly with tears. When asked by the hotel staff what to do with the cake adorned with a happy anniversary plate, all I could say was, "Please discard it." That day, I ended up staying at my travel destination alone. Although I had a sightseeing tour planned for the next day, I canceled it and hurried home. At that time, I thought something might have happened to Steve. "I'm home. Steve, are you back?" Entering the house, the room was silent, with no sign of anyone. As I dropped my luggage and glanced at the dining table, something had been placed there. It was a divorce paper, signed by Steve, and our wedding ring. What? What is this? What is going on? I searched for a letter but found nothing. Looking around the house, all his belongings were gone, and it was clear that they had been moved out. I was so stunned that all I could do was sit down on the spot. When I came to my senses, I immediately contacted my mother-in-law. She lived far away, and we had only met a few times, but she was a kind woman who treated me kindly. When I explained the situation, my mother-in-law was also astounded. There was no report from him, and he didn't seem to have come to his parents' house. When I called Steve's office after the holiday, I was told a shocking fact.
Mr. Smith resigned last month.
What?
We've been trying to reach him too, but we haven't been able to get through since yesterday. Could you please tell him to contact us as soon as possible?
I ended my call with Steve's workplace in a daze. Next, I pulled out my cell phone and called Steve. But all I heard from the phone was, "The number you dialed is currently not in use." And so, Steve vanished abruptly one day. After going through various processes, I submitted the signed divorce paper and forcibly ended our married life. Time passed, and about 3 years have gone by. I have remarried and am now living a peaceful life. Of course, I was initially distraught, but now I hardly ever think about my ex-husband. It's true what they say, time heals all wounds. As usual, when I came home alone after work, I noticed something. The lights in the house were on. That's odd. Did I forget to turn off the lights this morning? As I reached for the doorknob, I noticed that the front door was unlocked. What's more, there was a pair of ragged men's sneakers that I didn't recognize at the entrance. A wave of tension ran through me, and I was about to pull out my cell phone to call the police. There appeared a familiar face at the entrance.
"Oh, welcome home, Hazel."
What? The person standing there was none other than Steve, my vanished ex-husband. I was surprised and speechless. Without paying any attention to me, Steve brazenly said,
"You're late coming home as usual. You've kept your husband waiting. I'm hungry. Is dinner ready yet?"
In my mind, the memories from 3 years ago came flooding back. The audacity of Steve, unloading all the household chores on me, as if it was my duty, yelling at me unreasonably. standing me up on our wedding anniversary trip, and then just disappearing off the face of the earth. Now he is standing right in front of me. The man I hate from the bottom of my heart is now right in front of me. The voice that escaped from my mouth was surprisingly icy. Who are you? Huh? Steve, taken aback, is staring at me. Returning his gaze sharply, I said, "Leave now or I'll call the cops."
Whoa, wait a minute. You can't tell me you've forgotten your husband's face.
He approaches with a smug grin. Upon closer inspection, he's put on weight, let his hair and beard grow out, and looks utterly unkempt compared to 3 years ago. Holding back my growing disgust, I retorted without mercy. "Stay back. What do you mean by husband?"
Come on, we're married, aren't we? You haven't forgotten just because we haven't seen each other for a while, have you?
What are you talking about? I filed for divorce a long time ago. We're strangers. At that, Steve's face looked like he had been struck by lightning. His eyes wide open and his mouth agape.
Why would you do such a thing?
You left divorce papers signed by yourself, didn't you?
What? You took it seriously? Did you really submit it?
I glared at the flustered Steve with a disgusted look. Is that a problem?
Of course it's a problem. I didn't intend to divorce at all.
What?
I thought you would wait for me. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it.
My patience had run out with Steve, who was playing the victim. What do you mean? I thought you would wait for me? After all, it was you who abandoned everything 3 years ago to move in with your mistress, wasn't it? When I blurted that out, Steve once again looked astonished. Soon after he disappeared, I hired a private investigator to locate him. Half a year after he left, the investigator found him, and the report I received was beyond imagination. About 6 months before he disappeared, he had been having an affair with a worker at his workplace. Apparently, their relationship was an open secret at the office. In the end, he and the other woman quit their jobs and started living together in the neighboring state. Upon hearing this, I had immediately filed for divorce, my love and affection for him completely exhausted. I had been living, trying not to recall the past, yet now he appears before me, even having the audacity to barge into my house. I deeply regretted not having changed the locks.
No, Hazel, you've got it all wrong.
I retorted angrily to Steve's plea. What's there to misunderstand? I've gathered all the evidence through a PI. Go back to her.
That's not possible.
What?
We broke up. We've been fighting a lot recently. I don't care about her anymore, Hazel. You're the only one for me.
My ex-husband pathetically clinging to my arm. I shook him off, my face full of disgust. I've told you, you're not my husband. How dare you dictate to me, a stranger to you?
I only love you, right? Let's start over our married life. Let's go to the city hall now and reapply for our marriage certificate. Come on, let's get moving.
Steve tugs at my arm. This is hopeless. He's not understanding a word. Just as I take out my cell phone to call the police, the front door swings open.
Who might you be? Let go of her arm, please.
Steve, taken aback, slackens his grip. I instantly run towards the source of the voice.
What the? Who are you?
My husband.
What?
I cling to the arm of my returning husband. He gently soothes me. He addresses Steve in a low voice.
You're Steve Smith, right? Hazel's ex-husband. Yes, that's me. But you? Her husband?
Stunned Steve doesn't comprehend the situation, so I lay it out for him. I've been remarried for a while now. That's why I've been telling you that you're a stranger. My new husband, John Collins, is a colleague from work. Apparently, he has been interested in me since we joined the company. At first, he gave up because I was married. But once he learned of my divorce, he started to make his move. At first, I was wary of men and didn't accept his feelings. But as I got to know John's earnest and sincere character, I gradually let him in. Upon hearing my circumstances, John looked me in the eyes and said,
I will never leave you alone, Hazel. I promise to protect you for the rest of my life. Will you please marry me?
Tearfully, I accepted his proposal, and I have been moving forward, forgetting the past.
Hazel, got remarried with another man?
Steve gawks at John and me.
Once you understand, could you kindly leave?
John's stern face makes Steve recoil. As Steve tries to flee towards the entrance, I stop him. Hold it right there. He looks back at us, trembling with fear. You're going to be paying alimony. It's not beyond the statute of limitations yet, so you will pay for your infidelity.
I'm not working now. I don't have any money.
I couldn't care less. If you don't pay, I'll take you to court. Remember that. With that, my husband next to me also glares at Steve.
You should know full well what happens when you upset her, right? I understand. I'm sorry.
With that, he runs off with his tail between his legs. In the quiet room, I apologize to my husband. I'm sorry about all this. I never thought he would show up after all this time.
It's okay. It must have shocked you too, Hazel. From now on, let me know if something happens. I'll protect you with everything I've got.
Embraced by my husband, I savored the happiness that was. Later on, it seems Steve returned to his parents' home. My former mother-in-law contacted me and agreed to pay the alimony in one lump sum. According to her, Steve will now work off his debt to her by tolling away on their family farm. I do hope the proud and selfish Steve changes his ways and works honestly. But I never want to be involved with him again. As for me, learning from this experience, I moved to a new apartment. In fact, I recently found out that I am pregnant with my current husband, who is truly happy about my pregnancy. I'm sure we'll be able to build a happy family.